Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. Mark, we talked about Alabama in our last segment. Now let's go to the Auburn Tigers, because with Alabama there's one sense of new and there's one sense of what do we have here. With Auburn, it's probably a completely different sense of new and what do we have here, because it's a new team and a new coaching staff. A lot of the same players, but they're going to be running a different scheme. It's going to look a lot different from Malzahn. I think it's the same questions, but kind of painted in a different frame. What were some of your takeaways from Auburn's spring game?
Well, I think just initially, right off, you see the first play of the game, Tank Bigsby break it out to the outside. And watching this, I'm like, is this a walkthrough or what? Because guys kind of held up a little bit, and then they didn't even wind up counting this. Right. So it wasn't really the best start to get off to. But I thought Bigsby really did a good job. Like, this is going to be one of the better running backs in the SEC. Yeah, I thought he had a good year last year, considering everything that kind of went against some of the guys on Auburn, some of the games that they were involved in. I think he's a real great place to start their offense. The other thing we saw, and that's Smoke Monday making the first. Imagine you wide receiver catching that ball, Smoke Monday's coming in. That by the way, wasn't Bo Nix. That was the backup. Right. Like the fifth-year starter from Washington. So I think that there was a lot that the defense did well on Auburn. Their linebackers especially, I really like. And Bo Nix, you got to see a little bit of that new offense with Mike Bobo. Because when I started watching it, I'm like, let me pay attention to how many snaps he's going to take under center. Right. And the one thing they really seem to do well is play action pass. And you just see whether he was getting out of the pocket or whether it was him hitting the tight end, which I think is going to be a real weapon for Auburn this year, where it wasn't in the last couple of years. And even the fans have said, we need to use the tight end a little more. They had a couple of really good moments, I think, for Bo Nix, who last year threw for fewer touchdowns and more interceptions than he threw in his freshman year, and especially the way he ended that season against Alabama, where you thought, man, this guy is just going to take off from here. That's right. Once you beat Alabama, you figure, all right, now I've made it. Everything else is going to be easy. But then that long layoff and then COVID getting worse, I think it really hurt Bo Nix and how he's developing. I think Mike Bobo is going to be good for that. And you can see a lot of different things that Bo Nix can do well. I like a lot of how he was able to move in the pocket. And that was natural. It wasn't him running for his life. Right. And he found some good chemistry with some of the wide receivers. I thought Elijah Cannon, he had very good chemistry with. And I liked the backup. I like Demetrius Davis. I think he's very fast. Right. And if you saw, he had one action play that the wide receiver dropped. I think as he learns this system, they can maybe use him in some of those pass run situations that they haven't thrown out. Right. They're still doing some of that, and I think it takes advantage of Bo Nix's strength. You're going to see a lot of improvement from Bo Nix from last year to this year. And I think Mike Bobo, if you can tell, listening to some of the announcers on Auburn saying Bobo's really holding him accountable. He really gets along with him. He loves the fact that he has someone to press him and kind of, as Bo Nix says, getting his grill. This was the play that Demetrius Davis made. A great pass. Right. Hit the guy right in stride. Yep. And he was also got out and ran pretty well, too, in the pass run option. So I think he's going to be pretty good and learn a lot under Bo Nix. And then if he gets the chance, he'll be able to do some things for that offense that'll really pay off. But you saw a lot of what it's going to be like under Bobo and how they're going to use Bo Nix's strengths, which I think are very they're very good, and they're going to get better and better. And we're going to see a completely different quarterback and a completely different offense that we saw last year to this year. Exactly. And you mentioned Davis, and I think one of the biggest things with Demetrius Davis is that you'll be able to find him packages to be able to use him in, because of course your starting quarterback will be Bo, and I think that there'll be room for Davis and maybe even a Grant Lloyd. We saw Malzahn use Grant Lloyd last year a few times on special teams, and
over the course of the season. I think there's ways to kind of sprinkle some of these quarterbacks in.
Did you see them try to run the Philly special?
Yeah,
On one of the,
I think after that Philadelphia Super Bowl, every team has a version of that play.
But I thought it was hysterical. One of the announcers saying, well, if that was a better throw, he would have walked into the end zone. I don't think so.
Right, exactly. Let's take a look at some standout players that you saw from Saturday. And obviously, you got to start with Tank Bigsby, who, obviously won the SEC Freshman of the Year. And you look in and around the not only just the SEC, but in the country, and he's really kind of making a name for himself as probably one of the better players that will suit up next year. Mm-hmm. And you talk also about the play action game. And one of the biggest things that helps play action actually work is if you have a good running threat. Mm-hmm. And I think that he will have to keep the defense honest enough and with his ability to run that it would create some help for his quarterbacks and the receivers in that play action game. And he's one of a few that you thought had a really solid game Saturday.
Mm-hmm. I also thought Lee Hunter as a linebacker, along with Zagobi McClain, who we saw in air with 5 tackles and a tackle for loss, Lee Hunter was able to get through the offensive line a couple times. A big freshman defensive tackle, 6'4", 321. He's not a little guy.
Right.
And he's good to do a lot of things for that defense. And then a lot of guys coming off the edge. I think they'll have a good pass rush. There'll be a lot of things. They'll be very diverse on defense.
Right.
And starting also with Smoke Monday in the defensive backfield, there's a lot of guys back there who know what the SEC brings as far as wide receivers. They've seen just about everything. And after playing Alabama last year, I don't think you're going to see an offense better than that.
Exactly.
So I think it's a great learning experience for all those guys. But you also got to understand, this is not the normal game that you saw here.
Right.
So a lot of the things that they ran through, I know some of them, they just stopped the play. Bo Nix actually had a play where he ran for a touchdown that they didn't count. So a lot of those things are just seeing if they work. What I really came away with that you can look forward to as Auburn is that Bo Nix is going to get better, and he's going to be in an offense that can really take advantage of his skills and his talents.
Exactly. Head coach Brian Harsin addressed the media, talked about not only just the game atmosphere in and of itself, but almost a situation with the team where they're having to relearn kind of the things that you do in a normal fall and some of the things that they're looking forward to after spring practice and going into fall camp.
Today it was great for our guys to be in there. It was great to see the fans and to interact and have their interaction on the field. And I think our guys appreciated that. I know it helped us. I know at times it also allows us a chance to be able to learn from just the performance that we need to have as we get out there in front of people and we go to execute. And so there was plenty of things that we did do well today as far as stuff the coaches have been hitting and emphasizing with each group and each unit. And then some things that we got to work on, which is great. We have a practice on Monday that we get a chance to come back to and clean things up and then talk about what we're doing moving forward when we get into this time where finals are happening, guys have a chance to take a little bit of a break, and then we come back in June and get started. So there's a lot of things that are going to be happening here this next week and moving forward.
So June 1st is the day that everybody will be able to open up campuses again, and then just unlike last year where we had most of our camps were canceled or postponed because of COVID, all those camps will now be opening back up. So interesting things for both Alabama and Auburn's football teams as they go into what they hope would be a typical spring and summer coming up in the next few weeks before they open up fall camp practices in late July and early August. Coming up next year on Overtime, the Atlanta Braves had a kind of a good news, bad news weekend. We'll explain next.